Today's guest has such a special place in my heart for the incredibly beautiful way in which she shares the wisdom that she has gathered over the past few decades and the love and passion with which she shares that with all of us. It is the beautiful Ambika Wauters, who has previously been on the podcast as well. She is renowned for her work on the color remedies as well as the sound remedies. She has written several books. She's done gorgeous artwork with beautiful cards with angels and all sorts of amazing things, and you can find all of that at lifeenergymedicine.com. She also has incredible classes on the divine feminine and also on creating intentional remedies. There's just so much information on her website, so lifeenergymedicine.com. Today, though, we are going to be talking about the various chakras and remedies that can help to bring these into balance. And she illustrates this with various cases. This is part 1, so be sure to check in tomorrow for part 2. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and welcome back to the Homeopathy Hangout podcast, where I am so excited that we get to hang out again today with the incredible Ambika Wauters. Welcome back, Ambika.
Oh, thank you, Jenny. I'm delighted to be here.
So good to have you back. Now, we have had so many emails and messages and comments and things of people who just loved your previous episode and on the color remedies. But today we are just going to deep dive a little bit more. And we've got a slideshow here as well. So those of you who want to listen on Rumble, as my YouTube channel has been deleted for medical misinformation, apparently. So you can go watch the video of this on Rumble. Just go to rumble.com/c/homeopathy hangout. And Ambika has prepared a slide here for us as well, which I'm going to control from my end to the best of my abilities. Can you see the slide okay from your end?
Yes, just perfect.
Okay, excellent. Cool. Great. Fire away. Where do you want to start?
I like to start at the root chakra. That's where I like to start. I really think that you can't look at the human energy system without stability, without patience, without structure. The qualities of the root chakra they're so strong. They're so grounding. They let us let our spirit incarnate into this extraordinary body that we have created for ourselves. And so I like to start at the bottom and look at it as the ladder of ascension, of going higher to the more refined chakras. So let's start with the root chakra, the color red.
Will you tell me when you want me to change the slide?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
Now,
excellent.
Yeah, the overview. Let me just give a brief introduction. For those of you who are familiar with the chakra system, it's a very organized methodology of understanding how energy moves. It's very ancient, probably as old as 18,000 years old. I always imagine some very wise men sitting on top of a mountain, grasping the nature of the earth energies, the cosmic energies, and what lives in the human body, what the human spine can carry, and how people created things like the acupuncture system and the chakra system. They make me marvel at how everything has been incorporated. In the East, in India and China and the Far East, the concepts of chakras carry the gods, the messages of the gods. But in the West, what I really love about the chakras is the psychology, what I call soul psychology, that they incorporate the rights that we need to live our lives fully. So each of the chakras have a right. The right, and the root chakra is the right to your own life. When I started teaching this years ago, I was in a class in the Northwest of the United States, and some fellow was in the class, and he said, "What do you mean the right to your own life?" And I said, "Does anybody else have a right to your life?" And I could see that it created a whole conflict in his head. And he started talking. He said, "I thought that my life belonged to my family. I thought my life belonged to my clan. I thought my life belonged to my herd." And the truth of it is that your life belongs to you. It doesn't belong to your parents. It doesn't belong to your siblings. It doesn't belong to your children. or your spouse. It's your life, your choices, your decisions, your connections with your creator. It doesn't mean you don't have family, that you don't have loved ones, that you don't have community. Of course you do. That's what the root chakra is. It's about community. But the right to your own life is you can choose what it is you want to do. I remember when I told my father I was going to study homeopathy, and he said, "Why would you want to do that?" That's a question you have to think about before you answer. Because I love it, Dad, because I see that it works. I see that I had a million answers, but the question was, why would you want to do that? Because it meant nothing to him. Absolutely nothing. And it was about 20 years after I started studying homeopathy, I finally gave him a remedy. He was finally willing to take a remedy for arthritis, and it really helped. But you have a right to your own life. And that is something you'll see as we go through the chakras. It's very important. The life issues of the chakras are huge. The life issues are how we develop internally, how we grow spiritually, how we mature as human beings. I love this whole system. I'm thrilled with it, actually. And I'm writing my 9th book on the chakras and the human energy system. And I've incorporated the light body. And the light body is that part of us that is eternal. The chakras are part of our physical life, our emotional life, and our mental life. The chakras dissolve 3 days after we die. They're a hydraulic system that pumps energy up and down the spine. They have certain life issues. They resonate with colors and sounds and flowers and animals and planets. There's a whole cosmology around the chakras, which I really love, but they are not permanent. But what is permanent, what they say in India, that's something that is never born and never dies. It's the light body. The light body is the divine living within us. And the more I work with the light body, and I recently made a remedy from it, what I see is that all healing comes through the light body, and the light body ignites the chakras. The more that we can access our own light body, our own divinity, the chakras just bloom like flowers in the spring. And the more they open, the greater our capacity is to receive blessings and goodness. These chakras are receptors. They are conduits. They are vortices. And they move that energy. But the energy really ignites from within, from the light body.
That was so beautiful recently when you said you were writing this book and then suddenly you realized it's not the chakras, it's the light body. And now you have to rewrite the whole book because of this huge eureka moment that you've had. It's so cool.
Oh, I tell you.
Is that different to the vital force? Like when you say light body?
I think the vital force is the etheric energy and the astral energy. The astral body, the body, it goes like this in terms of subtle bodies. The physical body, the etheric body, which is the energy body, where the chakras are based. The astral bodies, which is what we call aversion and desire in homeopathy. It's all about what you like and what you don't like. That's the astral body. And then the egoic body, which is considered the soul body, the soul, that part that is eternal. I love that homeopathy really addresses at least those 3 bodies, the physical, the etheric, and the astral. I mean, look, aversions and desires is a very big part of what we do in case taking. So what do you like to eat? So what do you like to do? So what do you dislike? Where are you good? Where are you not so good? That's the astral body. It's a very opinionated body. It's not to say there aren't affinities that are positive and negative, but it's that I don't like this, I like that. I want tomato soup, I don't want asparagus. It's aversions and desires. But I also think that now we are starting to create some extraordinary remedies that really impact the light body, what they call the egoic body. Denitza's remedies for sure. And I think many of the remedies that we have touched on in the illumination class, Therese Cosgrove's yin and yang, powerful, very powerful remedy.
And I just had her on the podcast as well. Yeah, it was great.
She's created something. She opened a whole door for me on being able to take a symbol and turn it into a remedy. I recently had a colleague write a book about angels, and the cover of the book was this stunningly beautiful angel. And she said, "Could you make a remedy out of this photograph?" And I'll tell you, 3 months ago, I would have said, are you kidding? I said, I'll try. So I did. I just took a bottle of alcohol, put it on top of the picture, and it just sat there for days and days until finally I just thought it's absorbed into it and potentized it and sent it off to her. And she'll tell me if it's working or not. I'm much more open now since Therese Cosgrove really showed me, and Denitza also. We are in a totally different archetypal realm of understanding the nature of healing, not just energy, but healing. And the chakras, they're like the backbone. And if you can really come to see your own life in terms of the development, the internal, external development, you'll understand the chakras. It goes from one layer to the next. And they have ages of resonance, the root chakra from conception to 7. Steiner said once, if you could get to a child before they turn 7, you could help them grow spiritually. And I really do see a lot of truth in that when I work with young children. Young children need their mothers, particularly. They need structure. They need stability. They need to feel safe and secure. And they need to learn that they have a right to their own life. And I think the way you educate a child by saying, what is it that you want? What would you like? Doesn't mean you're going to get it, but what would you like? How do you see your world? How do we help a child cultivate imagination? Without imagination, you can't really create anything. You have to be able to see it. So starting young, starting with the young and showing them the magnificence of nature, the power of plants and animals, the sky, the power of love. These kids that are born now, I know your children are, what did you say?
Steiner. They're in Steiner schools. But letting them get bored to have time to wonder.
Absolutely. They don't have to have an activity every minute to fill their life. They need to be able to explore. Steiner's methodology for children under a certain age is extraordinary. I saw the 9.5-year change. Have you come across that?
Yeah, we do. I'm a really bad Steiner parent because I haven't done that much reading, but I know I keep hearing it because the teacher sends out things when the kids are a certain age. They'll say, okay, this is what the child's going through at the moment. This is what the child's going through.
And I saw it play out in a lot of cases. I don't do the chakra thing with children because basically you're only talking about 2 chakras, the root chakra and the sacral chakra. But I do see it in young people from, say, 21 on, or I get a young woman who's in her mid-30s and she doesn't understand what's happening. And I realize she's going right into the throat chakra development. I don't necessarily share that information, but I note it when working with people. If they don't know what the chakras are and they have no interest, buy a book, to do a workshop, but I don't take the time to go over that. It's just something I note and I pay attention to. And that way I can relate the color and sound remedies to their personal development. Let's start with the root chakra. The root chakra. These are symbols that were created for a book that I did called The Book of Chakras. I don't know how authentic they are, but my symbol for the root chakra is a large red cube. The color red, the note middle C, the Archangel Michael essence. I have holy water, which is Lord's water, I believe, and the gem elixirs, which are bloodstone, hematite. Trying to think what else. I should have written that in here, and I didn't, but it's in my book. That's what I can tell you. It's in my book, Healing and Health with the Homeopathic Color Remedies, and also it's in the new book. But let's get on to the concepts because that's where it's really enlightening. This is where we learn to trust life, to trust in life, and to create that foundation of trust in ourselves, trust in life, trust in our Creator. And if somebody's had the rug pulled out from under them in the first 7 years of their life, trust becomes an issue. They don't trust people. They don't trust life. They don't think anything will ever work out for them. And sometimes just giving a single dose of a red 30C just turns it all around. It brings the energy down. It roots them on the earth. It roots them in their life. If somebody's had an accident, a divorce, a bankruptcy, been to prison, fought a war, trying to think of all the things that impact the root chakra, just gotten lost. Red is an incredible remedy. It will bring the life force back. It will anchor a person in themselves and help them move forward. The qualities of the root chakra are patience, which is allowing the good to come to you. To be able to use red, I use red to treat impatience. When you see irritability, and I learned this in homeopathy, that irritability is a life sign. People say, oh, I'm so irritable. I'm so irritable. Like that Russ talks, irritability. And I said, irritability is a life sign. It means you're kicking. You're alive and you're kicking. I can certainly do what I can to balance it out, but irritability tells you that something's off, or they have a higher level of sensitivity than you would have thought. And impatience is a sign of a dysfunctional root chakra. I'll tell you about this case where I really learned this. I lived in the UK for 10 years. That's where I studied homeopathy. And I used to do workshops on the chakras. And this young, very British looking lad came, blonde hair, blue eyes, nothing out of the ordinary, just looked very English. And I was talking about the root chakra, and all of a sudden he raised his hand. He said, my father was from, I think he said, Hungary or Czechoslovakia. He was a prisoner of war in the Second World War and was brought to Britain to work. So what they did, they took the prisoners of war and they put them on the farms in the north of England. So he worked on a farm in Yorkshire and fell in love with a farmer's daughter, who of course was a very grounded woman. Yorkshire people are very grounded on the earth. And they had 5 kids. And he never went back. He was never allowed to go back to his home. And I'm sorry, I don't remember what country it was. But this man would have fits of temper, was incredibly irritable and very impatient. And this kid, I think this young boy, he was like, I think he was the 3rd out of 5. And he said, the planet that rules the root chakra is Saturn, which has that 2.5-year cycle. 2.5 years, 2.5 hours, 2.5 minutes, 2.5 seconds. That's the rhythm of Saturn. And I mentioned that to him, and he said, I have never been able to stay in a job for more than 2.5 years. I have never been able to stay in a house for more than 2.5 years. I have never stayed in a relationship for 2.5 years. This very, I say ordinary, very British looking lad. There was nothing that I had any idea that his father came from behind the Iron Curtain. But when I started talking about it, he sat up like the light went on, and we worked together for several months doing homeopathy and using the color remedies. And he was able to settle. He settled into a job. He was a teacher. He settled into a community. He settled into a relationship, and he found a level of happiness that might have eluded him his whole life if he hadn't learned about this. And he was able to help his father. I think the father wound up going back to visit where he came from, seeing who remained. It had been many years. And then I think his father passed. But it impacted all 5 of the children and their relationships and their children. You think about how many people have moved, have been shuffled around. When I lived in Africa, I met somebody from the UN High Commission for Refugees who said there were more refugees on the planet, this is in the 1980s, than at any other time in the history of the world. More refugees lost. And I've met here, we absorb a lot of refugees from the camps in Africa, here in Tucson. I don't know why. It seems to be a refuge. Have you ever heard of the Lost Boys of the Sudan? Do you know them?
There's lots of lost children here in Australia as well. That's a whole other story. But yeah, I think it's a theme probably around the world.
Around the world. And these lost boys were from the wrong tribe, and they were the tribes wiped out. And these boys started walking without shoes. It took them 7 years to go from the Sudan to the camps in Kenya. 7 years of walking. A lot of them died along the way. A lot of them got sick along the way. A lot of them got attacked. A lot of them got bitten by snakes and lions. Really, their story is one of the most compelling stories I've ever heard. And they settled here. For some reason, one of them got here, and he started bringing them out of the camps, the UN camps in Kenya. And it's just been a privilege to meet them. I would meet them in the supermarket. One would be a cashier. And I lived in Africa a long time. I knew many of the tribes. And I said, where are you from? What tribe are you from? And they started telling me their stories. And I thought, I would love to write a book, but somebody beat me to it and has written a book and I think made a movie. They are the most lovely of humans. They have lost everything in the process and gained wisdom and understanding and a love and compassion and a sense of mercy that is amazing. Whenever I see them, sometimes in a taxi, when I did travel, I remember once in Boston, the taxi driver was one of the lost boys. And I said, you're one of the lost boys. He said, how do you know? I said, I've seen you on TV and there are many of you in my town, Tucson, which they pronounce Tucson. And I said, yes, I'm from Tucson.
Cute.
But they talk about a root chakra. Their root chakra, their spiritual root chakra is vast. The whole world is their root chakra, but they lost everything.
Wow.
They lost their families. They lost their ties to their tribes. But something else got developed. They go to schools, they go to prisons, they go to hospitals, they talk to people, they tell their story. I guess that's the best thing you could say that anybody could do when they've lost their roots, is to share their story, because that's how you make connection.
Wow.
So this root chakra, there's nobody I know or have ever heard of who didn't come from someplace else in America, unless you're a Native American and then you were sent to a reservation to live. Nobody is from where they started out. So we all have dysfunction in the root chakra. Everybody's family has been influenced by war, by politics, by economic turns. The root chakra is not the most dysfunctional chakra, but it's taken a lot of wounding and it's absorbed a lot of trauma. So when you're doing trauma work, you really want to get the root chakra anchored. You want to build in patience, acceptance, structure, stability, safety, security. You want to create a sense of order. That wonderful phrase by James Tyler Kent that I love, 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 order in the economy. It doesn't get any more beautiful than that. That's the poetry of homeopathy. Order in the economy. And that describes the root chakra. You really want to anchor people in themselves. Like the lost boys, they're anchored in themselves. They become doctors and lawyers and attorneys, and they bring their own over. Some of them have lived in the camps for 15, 20 years. It's a long time to be in a camp.
It's interesting you use that example of James Tyler Kent, because I need to go find out the validity of this, but I've heard it in 2 different places from homeopaths that apparently James Tyler Kent's parents were brother and sister, and that
they were cousins.
Oh, cousins.
No, I think they were first cousins.
Okay. And then he was raised.
No, maybe they were. Yes, there was incest in Kent's
of some sort. So it's interesting that, just interesting that you bring this up, and it's all about kind of root chakra. So this is like the wounds that happen age 0 or pre-conception to age 7 or 0 to 7.
James Tyler Kent's family were Swedenborgians. Do you know the Swedenborgians? Mm-hmm. Swedenborg was a Swedish philosopher. He was an engineer. He was considered the brightest, most intelligent man of his time, which was, I think he lived in like the late 1600s, 1700s. He built bridges. He built roads. He was a great engineer who had the visitation of the Christ every day for 28 years. And in that time became highly spiritualized and started a church. He would describe heaven, which was, it's quite beautiful. It's like a little root chakra community of angels living behind little houses with white picket fences. But James Tyler Kent's family were Swedenborgians, and Swedenborgians have a hierarchy. So the Kentian hierarchy, that came from the Swedenborgians. They're all over the world. Have you ever heard of Johnny Appleseed? It's a myth here in America. Johnny Appleseed was this Swedenborgian who went around America planting apple trees. And he would wrap them in little newspapers with little bits of Swedenborgian philosophy. But he was also a homeopath. Yeah, I know. I love these little myths.
Yeah.
But the root chakra, it's where we anchor, where our spirit gets anchored, where we create structures that are healthy and wholesome that support us in life, where we find security and safety. No victimhood here. We've got to say goodbye to victimhood. We've got to create a very strong foundation that's going to support us in our life and in our work. And it's where we harvest out the unwholesome qualities like impatience and irritability and rage. It's about finding one's right to one's own life. And I think when you implement these qualities, you allow health to take hold.
You've just hit the nail on the head for me with somebody who the dad cheated on the mum while she was pregnant with this person. And this person is the biggest victim who blames everyone for everything and takes no responsibility for their life and was under the stronghold of the dad his entire life and never got to actually create his own life. And I've always felt that initial, like, how can it not affect you on some level when you're in the womb and your father is cheating on your mum while you're in the womb? I just feel like now that you've said that, it all feels so crystal clear. It all makes sense now. And I can also see how, as homeopaths, it's actually helpful knowing this stuff about the chakras, because we can see where the healing needs to happen, where it just I'm like, oh, that's a root chakra thing that this person needs to build. Yeah.
And the root chakra is the soric miasm.
Makes complete sense, because this person is the biggest hoarder, and the dad was the biggest hoarder, and the grandparents who came out of the Great Depression were the biggest hoarders on the planet.
Wow.
Yeah, well, interesting.
It is interesting. And if you look at the remedies that are used for the root chakra, but a little bit of red, and you can take the red and you can mix it with magenta, or you mix it with pink, which I call raspberry. The red is hard for people over 50. The root chakra is not meant to have that level of stimulation. But if you mix it with magenta, which gives insight, people get that, aha, oh, I don't want to be a victim. I see what happened. Let's put that aside. There's a little more choice. That's what the color remedies do. They open the field so that healing can happen. And they don't interfere. I think some homeopaths believe that the color remedies, sound remedies would interfere. They don't. They basically, what they do, let's say the chakra is like this, just this little tiny. When I was in England and I started doing this work, I saw my root chakra was the size of a small postage stamp. Really, no kidding. And the more I did the work, it grew and it grew until it was a large red barn. That's how big it got. Doing the meditations daily, working with the remedies. It just was something I needed to do. I remember getting an EU passport. And I remember the day it slipped through the post box, landed on the floor with this thud. And I was meditating and I looked up and I went, oh, my passport. It was like, okay, now I'm here. Now I'm here. Those things that just expand that field and creating structures that support you. We had a question once, the last year of homeopathic college. One of the tutors said, what are the structures that support you in being your best? And I thought, good repertory, a good materia medica, a pharmacy, people who can teach me more about my medicine, a place where I can lay my head and feel safe at night. When I first went to England, I had been living in Africa and then Spain. I came to England to go to college, homeopathic college. And one of the questions they asked in the interview was, how do you see yourself in 5 years' time? I was living out of a suitcase in a friend's apartment. And I said, I see linen, I see sheets folded and towels. And I see this guy going, what are you talking about, lady? And they said, that's order for me. Order, sheets, clean sheets and clean towels. That's a housewife in me. That's how I see order. Or a well-stocked pantry is order. Or money in the bank is order. That very grounded stuff, that's paying your bills on time and making sure you have what you need. And I see people here now, people are very insecure here now in the States, and they're starting, I don't want to say hoard, but my husband said today, he was in the store and he said, they're starting to hoard again. There's no more toilet paper. There's a big strike. There's a big shipping strike that's going on the Eastern Seaboard, which means the petrol's not getting here, the toilet paper's not getting here. We went through it with COVID, but people start to hoard. Like they really actually believe that there isn't enough. There's a very good expression in Dutch, genoeg is genoeg.
Genoeg is genoeg. Enough is enough.
Enough is enough. And that it's part of this chakra. It's also part of the sacral chakra. What is enough? How much toilet paper does one person need? But people are starting to get that insecurity again that we thought was all gone after COVID. But one has to know what one needs and feel that they deserve to have what they want. I do believe in that. Any questions you've got about, here we go, about the root chakra. Here's some information. Located at the base of the spine and the perineum, the element is the earth element, which is dry, it's salty, it's snap mirror, it's agaricus, the color red, the note middle C. It works on the hips, the rectum, the cervix, legs, and feet. It impacts the hormones that are secreted by the adrenal cortex of the kidneys. Now, the chakras, one of the things the chakras do is they stimulate the ductless glands to secrete. So let's say you've got an idea that you don't belong or everything is a threat. We've all seen clients that have that MO of everything is a threat. Everything shakes them up. They go into some kind of hyper-vigilant space. I've seen it more than once. I'm sure you've seen it. How do you bring these people down to earth? How do you ground them? How do you give them a sense of security? If they don't get treatment, what happens is the adrenal gland is putting out adrenaline for crossing the street, for going to the grocery store. You need adrenaline for things that are life-threatening, not for daily life. And when you start to use adrenaline for daily life, your kidneys are going to suffer greatly. And we see things like chronic cystitis or chronic kidney infection. And when you start digging in the history, you'll see hypervigilance, that incredible fear of attack or abuse. And I think there's some great remedies. I love berberis. I love Stavasagria. I love Cantharis. But I love do
cortisol and potency as well. Cortisol 60 in the water bottle often.
Anything to release that hold on the adrenal cortex so that people can get grounded and have a calm and ordinary life. I once asked somebody who did work with narcissism, I said, how do you differentiate a narcissist from an ordinary person? And they said, an ordinary person is very comfortable living an ordinary life. They don't need all the hoopla. They don't need the drama and the trauma. They just are happy with an ordinary life, belonging, being grounded, feeling secure, stable, creating structures that support you, knowing you have a right to your own life. So the mental qualities are organization, administration, patience, trust, creating structure that supports your life, and reality. What is so is so. Reality is a big factor here. This isn't about fantasy. It isn't about imagination, because very grounded people are not necessarily, they're not your artists. They're not your poets. They're your administrators. They are people who love to bring order to the economy. I'm not saying it's the best or the worst. It's just very grounded people could use a little imagination. They could use a little pink. They could use a little turquoise and a little violet in their life. But there's nothing the matter with being grounded. Absolutely nothing. Because generally they're the most trustworthy people you will find. That's my experience. The spiritual affinity is community, tribe, family, ancestors, and past lives. I'm a great believer in past lives and feel that most of the people I meet in my life, I've known at another time. But this idea of community, and not just the community you were born into or the country you were born into, but the community of like-minded people. You have started a community. You have started an international community with Homeopathy Hangout. And I've said it before, I have great admiration for who you are and what you've done. It's beautiful. And we're comfortable with one another. Everybody feels comfortable and safe. So you're the big mama of this Homeopathy Hangout community. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambika.
And like I said, the miasm is the Soraf miasm. Okay, the sacral chakra, which is located right over the belly button, what the Chinese call the dantian. and over the sacrum in the back. The color is orange. The note is D. The archangel is Metatron, who is the archangel of manifestation. The holy water, I'm trying to remember the holy water for the sacral chakra. I think it's Chalice Well, but I'm not sure. And the gem elixirs are carnelian.
You'll like this part, Ambika. I got a video yesterday from Danitza on WhatsApp of her at Chalice, busy drinking the Chalice water just yesterday. Yeah, it's beautiful. I can't wait to go visit one day.
Beautiful. I made a remedy from it. It's really lovely, really sacred and lovely and very feminine. Let's think about that on the next sheet, but we'll cover the qualities. The qualities of the sacral chakra are health, resiliency, beauty, unconditional love, forgiveness and gratitude, pleasure, ease and delight, abundance, thriving, and prosperity. This chakra is all about the good. And it's about allowing ourselves to really be blessed by our Creator. Somebody was talking about money the other day, and I said, where do you think money comes from? And they said, hard work, toil and hard work. He said, where do you think it comes from? I said, I think it comes from God. I think money comes from God. It's a blessing. It is a blessing. And I think all we need to do is just ask for what we need. Ask for what we need. Forgive the past, let go, be grateful for everything we have in our life, and ask for the good. Ask for it to touch our hearts. Ask for it to enter our life. So the sacral chakra, it's about pleasure, delight, ease, yummy food, sexuality, sensuality, feeling beautiful, and all the good things that go with it. And it's also a very challenging chakra for many people, just like they overwork, the workaholics, the people that burn out in their 20s, the people who do not give themselves pleasure, who don't know how to be happy. The bottom line is, do you know how to be happy? Do you know what makes you happy? It's a big question. It's a huge question. What would make you happy? And often what people think will make them happy has nothing to do with happiness at all. But ease, the ease to be able to enjoy your life. Like what you're doing. Your plan to go around Australia. What a beautiful thing to do. To see your beautiful country. To take time off. To slow it down. Really, when I think about how I worked when I was younger and how I work now, mind you, I have no intention of stopping work, but I have no desire to work like I used to, 15 clients a day. That's insane. I see one client a day, 3 days a week. That's it. That's it. I want to write. I want to teach. So that's what I do. That's my choice. Unconditional love to really, nobody can function in this world of relationship without being able to cultivate the beauty and compassion that goes with unconditional love. If you're going to get angry at every little thing that goes wrong, hold grudges for things that people did 25 years ago, or get filled with hatred and anger, you are going to suffer. It will eat you alive. It will eat. Hatred is vitriol. It will eat you from the inside out. And we see a lot of it here in my country. There's a tremendous amount of polarity in our political contestants for the presidency that's coming up. And people are afraid to open their mouths. They're afraid to talk. They're afraid to share their ideas. Who cares in the long run? Who's going to care who you voted for? Who's going to care what your opinions are? People are really paranoid. They whisper, they huddle, and they're afraid of receiving hatred. There's a lot of untamed hatred out there. It's in the media. It's in the anti-Semitism that's around. It's in the political choices. It's a time like I said before, I feel like a hermit. I just keep my head down and I'm quiet. This isn't where I want to go. I don't want to fight with anybody. I want to be able to freely make my choices and do what I like. I still think this is a very free country because it's such a big country. But you look at Canada, they struggle. They do not have a lot of freedom. I don't know about Australia. I don't know about New Zealand. I don't know about South Africa. I do know a bit about England, but freedom is a huge gift. And it is not related to the sacral chakra. It's related to the solar plexus chakra. But the freedom of unconditional love is really what sets us free. To just be willing to love unconditionally. It's work. Trust me. More and more, it's work. But once you've mastered it, it sets you free because you're not attached to anything. You're not attached to the things that pull you down. And finding pleasure in what delights you. I often ask, what makes your heart sing? I ask that to my clients. I ask it in workshops. What makes your heart sing? What is it you love doing? I think they're important questions to ask our clients because I think a lot of people, especially with chronic illnesses, this is, after all, the seat of the immunity. This is the seat of immunity, the sacral chakra area. And when you see chronic illnesses, they have an origin in a negative point of view about pleasure. You can almost put your finger on it. And if you look at and you ask questions about, well, how did your parents, how did your mother, my mother worked 24/7. My mother was a slave. My mother did, really? So what's your take on pleasure? I've never really thought about it. What would you like to do? And they don't know. People freeze up. They don't even know what they will give themselves permission to enjoy. Pleasure is not illegal. This isn't a drug. This isn't an abuse of substance abuse. Pleasure can just be sitting in the sun, putting your feet in the swimming pool or in the lake or going for a walk. I think pleasure is quite simple when you think about it. It's easy. It demands nothing of you but being present, opening your senses, taking a look around you. Pleasure is what we need to cultivate in order to ease our pain and our suffering. I always say there's so much suffering. Please don't add to that pool. Take a remedy. If you're suffering, take a remedy or send me an email. Yeah. And abundance is a big one. The right to prosperity, the right to have enough of what you want and need in your life. And it's a mental thing. It's all mental. It's your choice to allow the good in, to expand your capacity to receive goodness and blessing. Let's go on to the next page, shall we? Yeah. So the sacral chakra is in the navel area. The element is water. And one of the things we see with women particularly is idiopathic edema, where the body holds water right before the period comes. And the question I ask is, have you been suppressing your feelings? They go, what? They think it's salt intake. What's making you eat a lot of salt? Are you suppressing anger? Are you suppressing resentment? Yes. How about letting that one go? And when they do, often they just will find themselves slimming down, not retaining fluid. Yes, I say that the physical body is the seat of immunity, reliance, mobility, stamina, body fluids, pleasure, sexuality, abundance, and well-being. The hormones are estrogen and testosterone and all the other sexual hormones. The chakra will stimulate the testes in men and the ovaries in women to secrete these. If you have a negative idea about sexuality, you can have a terrible time with hormonal change in adolescence and in menopause. So the emotional issues are depression or elation, gratitude, forgiveness, abundance, pleasure, joy, and creativity. This is where you want balance. This is where you really want to bring balance into the human economy. And this chakra is the most dysfunctional chakra in the whole human energy system, mostly through the exploitation of sexuality, premature sexuality. The JonBenet Ramsey, that little child who, the beauty queen that was murdered in America 20 years ago. I guess you don't know about it, but children dressed up to look like
Yes, so much
models
of it these days. It's
way
bizarre.
before
and exposed to all sorts of things online that they would never. I mean, I think the average age for a child who's seen porn is like age 11 or something like that, or probably even
you're
younger.
kidding.
No, due to social media and all the kids having access to tablets and things like that. So by age 11, most kids have already been exposed to porn.
That's disgusting. Really, where are the parents? That's my question. How does that happen? I don't know. I really don't. I know they're very savvy. I know that the young are very savvy, much more so than people my age at 13 or 14. We were just awkward.
Same
Awkward
here.
we were.
I think it's just such a breakdown of community. Hey, like parents having to work ridiculous hours to keep up with the Joneses, to pay things that they don't need and buy things that
Absolutely.
don't need. And then the kids are left alone by, yeah.
And kids are curious. They're inquisitive. They're going to look. They're going to want to find out. That's just natural at that age. But the boundaries, this is where this chakra needs boundaries. And often where you see people who don't have boundaries, the lachesis and that loquacity, that constant talking, that's a sacral chakra remedy if ever there was one. Probably all the snake remedies are. But the orange can really help balance this chakra. The one thing I would say about red and orange and yellow is don't ever take these in the evening. I like to use the remedies that follow the sun. So when the sun comes up early in the morning, you start with red, you move, by 9 or 10 o'clock, you do orange. By noon, you're doing yellow. And then as the sun starts to pass over towards the afternoon, you move into the cooler colors, because to follow the sun is a great way to work with the remedies. If you take orange and red in the evening, you will be up all night long. And I've had people say, I heard you say it, but I didn't believe you. They have the energy of the day. It's like sulfur. You don't give sulfur at night. You give sulfur in the morning because it's got that impact. At least I don't give sulfur in the afternoon.
Something we don't talk about often enough actually is the way in which we take remedies. And in Bali, that is something that was mentioned a few times, with the intention with which you take a remedy. And Janie Lavelle, she gave me a remedy. She said, put one pillule in the top of your tongue and one pillule at the bottom of your tongue, like as above, so below. And I love the intention with that. And then as you're taking the remedy, saying this remedy is going to help me. But also the times of day, like some remedies aggravate at certain times. I've had Medarhinum a few times where I've given it, like the patients had at night and they've been unable to sleep. So some remedies, I think, like we've had somebody on the podcast, I'm trying to think who it was, but just saying that sulfur for 10 a.m. aggravation, like that's a good time. I can't remember now if they said that's a good time to take it or not to take it then. I think it was to take it then. Take it around the podium, take it between 4 and 8 p.m. or something like the time that remedy has an affinity for, that's the time that you take it. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
And the remedy's still going to work anyway. So just for any new listeners listening, the remedy's still going to work anyway. But sometimes having the intentionality around, especially if you're very sensitive to remedies, then it's great. Yeah.
Everything you can do to make it easier for a remedy to work. I've started following Eat Right for Your Blood Type.
Oh, Gabrielle's gorgeous. She's a fellow Cape Townian.
It really works. It really works taking a remedy. It's easy for your body to absorb a remedy. And I also think at the times of day, we have this acupuncture clock. We call it the homeopathy clock, but it came out of acupuncture. And you can look and see like a podium between 4 and 8. The remedies have a time affinity. It's worth looking at. Absolutely worth looking at.
Where did you find the remedy clock? Where did you hear about that? Or whose work is that?
The remedy clock, it comes out of acupuncture.
Oh.
Yeah. In Britain,
is it a book that somebody's written, or is it like, where do you find
I've got it. I've got it in my notes.
Okay, cool.
It's fascinating because the acupuncturists have been doing this from the beginning of time. They know the organs have a time affinity. So a lot of homeopaths in England, particularly, were acupuncturists before they trained in homeopathy. So they just added the remedies to it. And it's very helpful.
Hilary Dorian is great like that because she's got that acupuncture Chinese medicine background. And then I actually have her clock because I asked her, because there's a few different clocks online of the Chinese medicine and which times of the day relates to which organ. Some of them are slightly different. So I got her to send me one a while ago and just like which one is accurate. And she sent me one. And so I often refer to that for clients like waking at a particular time or.
Yes, people say I get up I only can sleep till 3 o'clock and then I'm up and blah, blah, blah. And I say, what do you do? They said, I have tea, I have toast, I pray, I read the paper, and I said, can't you go back to bed? The idea of not being able to get a good night's sleep is, at my age, that's horrible. I love sleep. So
I also use it as a way of education because so many of my clients don't get to bed till like 12 or 1 a.m. And I show them on the medicine clock, if you're not going to bed that time, it means your liver is not detoxifying because this is the window in which your liver detoxifies. So if you're not going to bed that time, your liver can't detoxify. So I use that as a training tool to get them to go to bed earlier because that sleep before midnight is so much more restorative than after. They say an hour, every hour
absolutely.
before midnight is worth 2 after, or something like that.
That's right. I learned that from a doctor. Absolutely right. So we want this chakra, you really want to tonify it. You want to feed it what's good for it. You want to give it exercise that's good for it. You want to give it rest when it needs it. You want to believe in honey. You know who Hannah Shalom is out of Toronto?
No, you need to stop asking me if I know people, because you know so much more than me. So I don't like people and things that I've never heard of. And that's why I love talking to you, because it keeps exposing me to stuff.
Hannah Shalom, she's an earth angel, and she's a homeopathic oncologist. She's brilliant.
A homeopathic oncologist in whereabouts? Sorry?
Toronto.
Oh, wow.
And she teaches. She's very gifted. And she has
her on the show as well, please.
She said, yes, I'd love for you to meet her. And I did a podcast with her. You can see the podcast on my website. And if you want, get in touch with her, because I think she'd be great for your show. She has this expression that I love, to bathe in honey. To bathe in honey. It's wow. Just get an image of that, bathing in honey. What she's talking about, find the sweetness in life. Find the sweetness, find the ease, find what's natural. I love that expression. Bathe in honey. And that's the sacral chakra. Bathe in honey. Find your delight. Get rid of your victimhood. Get rid of martyrdom. The negative archetype for the root chakra is the victim, because it has no energy. But the sacral chakra has a little more energy, and it's the martyr. The martyr is the one who says, no, you go, darling. You have fun. I'll just stay home and suffer. It's the hardest archetype to transform therapeutically of all the archetypes, of all the negative archetypes. This one is really a challenge, because the culture validates martyrdom. Oh, poor you. Poor you. We're so sorry to hear that. I once had a client who had cancer say to me that she'd never had a better social life than since she had got cancer. I almost fell over when I heard it. Her kid had dropped out of university to take care of his mother, and she was going to all these support groups, and she was having this great old time. Not that I begrudge her a great old time, but you could have had that social life, lady, without the disease. You did not need the disease to have a good social life. I said to her, I think your social life could kill you if you're not careful. And this is 30 years ago, I heard that. Wow. Think about it. We validate martyrdom. Nobody likes a victim, because they'll pull and they'll suck on you and they'll take all the energy they can to get on their feet. But martyrdom, very subtle and very ingrained in the culture. The British are brilliant at it. They're brilliant at it. My family are Jews. They're brilliant at it. The Greeks and the Italians, they come pretty close too. The Mediterranean cultures, the mama cultures, have a lot of martyrdom in them, which, wear thin after a while. They wear thin because they enslave people. They hook people to them. They don't give people the freedom to go out and live their life and do what they want. Don't get me going on the martyrdom. I could write a book on that one alone. I went to Israel for 3 months to write a book on healing martyrdom. And what I wound up doing was healing my martyrdom. It was fascinating. Took me 10 years to write the book, but it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. It was also a place where I really grew up, because they may have a bit of martyrdom, but they really stand on their own 2 feet in ways that most people don't. So it was quite an experience. Anyway, forgiveness, the acceptance of pleasure, the release of depression, learning how to enjoy yourself with small pleasures, how to be creative. It's a seat of creativity, both for physical life, and it's the seat for athletes. This is the chakra for athletes, for dancers. It's where creative energy is so abundant. And I tell my menopausal women, you will never be more creative in your whole life than when you go into menopause. And they look at me like, you mean it's not a bad thing? I said, no, it's the most creative time in your life, if you let it be. I wrote 9 books in 10 years after starting my menopause.
Wow.
Like, you couldn't stop me. I've never experienced that kind of energy before or since. So you want to get rid of lack. You want to get rid of the idea that there isn't enough. Start to cultivate the idea of plenty, of unconditional love, of thriving, and what you want and need to be happy. The spiritual affinities are knowing who you are, that what you do and what you have are enough. And the miasm is the psychotic miasm. Can't get enough of what you don't really need. That's the psychotic miasm. Any questions or comments here?
No, but as you were talking, I was just thinking we need to do a whole episode on menopause, I think, because
Oh, yes.
as you were talking about the adrenals before as well, like one of the biggest aha moments for me was a few years ago when a naturopath said to me, when you go through menopause and perimenopause, that the adrenals actually take over the job of producing estrogen from the ovaries. And so the ovaries stop producing estrogen and then the adrenals take that over. And so it's not really a surprise that menopause is such a mess for so many women when we think of the adrenalized life that we live in. And how now with you saying that it can actually be such a creative time of your life, which kind of makes me think, because the ovaries is not taking over that job of producing the estrogen, the ovaries energetically can spend time on creativity and things like that. And I know folliculinum is a remedy I often use for that. And Dorian in an endocrine lecture talks about how once you use folliculinum, when she gives this to clients, often they've returned to their old creative pursuits. So she's had the most amount of handmade cards after giving clients this remedy, because it is that return to creativity. So only question I have is that we need to do another podcast episode, maybe talking about perimenopause and menopause and all those sorts of things.
Incredible time. But you're right about folliculinum. I had it right before I went to India, like 2 weeks before I went to India, and it was the most powerful remedy. It turned me upside down and inside out. And that's when I started writing. I came back from India and started writing my first book. What an incredible remedy. And God bless Melissa Aslam. May she rest in peace. She brought that remedy to the table. She was a stunning homeopath. Wow. And she loved the color remedies. That's the other thing.
Oh,
yeah, she loved them.
Yeah.
She invited me down to London once. She had brought a clairvoyant in to sense the remedies. And this woman, and I'd never met this woman before, she said the same thing about the colors as I said about the remedies. It was fascinating. Yeah, she's missed. She did a lot of good work for women. Okay, solar plexus. Let's move on up this ladder of love. So the solar plexus is right in the nerve ganglion, right under the sternum, right over the belly. It's a center of worth, knowing one's worth in everything that you do. It's the center of empowerment. The color is yellow. The note is E, the Archangel Uriel, who brings us the light of God. The holy water is Mother Cabrini. Do you know Mother Cabrini? Mother Cabrini was an Italian nun who came to the United States and worked with orphans and somehow got herself to Colorado and saw a piece of land she wanted to buy to bring orphans from the city out to the country so they could enjoy the wonders of nature. She got the money, she bought this land, but it didn't have any water on it. They couldn't find water, so they had to truck in water. This is like in the beginning of the 1900s. They had to truck in water, and these kids would, they would have 2 weeks there, like a summer camp. And one day, one of the nuns said to her, this thing of not having water is really, she said, it's not going to work. And Mother Cabrini said, go over to that rock and hit it with a stick. So the girl went and hit it with a stick and water started gushing out. And it's been gushing out since 1906 or whenever this thing happened. And Mother Cabrini take this remedy quite often. She was such a dynamic go-getter. When I find myself overworking, I take Mother Cabrini's. Okay, slow it down, take it down a notch. It's like, it'll get done. Chill out. She was an amazing woman. And I think they made a movie or a television series about her. I haven't seen it, but I've seen it advertised.
Wow.
Yeah, she was powerful. And this light, yellow, has more light in it than any color in the visible spectrum. It's a wonderful chakra because it really is about knowing who you are and that you are worthy of whatever you say you want. I ask this often in workshops and with clients. What do you need to do to prove you're worthy of what you say you want? And the answer is nothing. Nothing. You don't have to do anything. You're worthy because you exist. Not for what you do, not for what you have, but just simply because you exist on this planet in this human form.
because he beats 5 however many million other sperm. You deserve to be here.
So finding your self-worth, getting rid of your lack of unworthiness, finding how you can negotiate with the world. It's how we build an ego in psychology. An ego is how we negotiate with the world. A healthy ego, not an unhealthy narcissistic ego or a totally diminished or deflated ego, but an ego that says, I need some money to feed my kids and I need to find a job that's going to support me. Now, how can I do that? How do I negotiate with the world to get my needs met without lying, without being a criminal, without begging? It's a very interesting chakra because it's all about having confidence for life. And I love that expression. Self-worth, self-esteem, confidence for life. And as you get confidence for life, you start to learn the tools for manifestation, the ability to visualize what it is you want and need, the trust in life to know that you can call to you what you need to live your life the way you want it to be. The ability to manifest is a huge gift. And the last quality of the solar plexus is freedom of choice. People died for freedom in South Africa, in the English-speaking countries, in Europe, throughout Africa, throughout South America. People have died for freedom. And the ability to have the freedom to choose what you want is one of the major qualities of this chakra and something I love. And I give yellow probably more than any other. I give a lot of pink, but I give a lot of yellow for people who really need empowerment. People who say, I'm terrified to speak up to my boss. Have a little yellow. And I go, how did that interview go? Oh, it went really well. I didn't even think about it. Good. Good. That's how I'd like to see the remedies used. They really help people get confidence. The way you can tell whether somebody has low confidence is if they have poor digestion, if the gallbladder gets impacted or the pancreas is not putting out, or there are issues with acidity or the stomach cannot digest properly. Those are all solar plexus issues you'll find. And that's why I'd like to go to the core of these chakras because they'll tell you an awful lot about what people are not telling you. So the qualities for the solar plexus again are self-worth, self-esteem, confidence for life, the ability to manifest what you want and need, and freedom of choice. Let's move on to the next. Located in the nerve ganglion over the stomach and under the sternum. This is the fire element. It affects the stomach, the small intestines, the liver, gallbladder, pancreas, spleen, and the bones. And I have used yellow for people who have bone pain for cancer of the bone. It's helped a lot. And for people with diabetes, it's awfully good to use with pancreatin. The emotional issues are self-love, self-esteem, confidence, the ability to manifest what you want, freedom, and ultimately choosing love. It's the right, your right here is the right to your own power. And that this chakra comes into full growth, full bloom at age 21 when people reach their majority. And it's wonderful to see people take on the battles of adulthood, the fights, fighting the good fight. The archetype, the positive archetype here is the warrior, the one who fights the good fight for love, victory, and the glory of God. The spiritual affinity is to know how to use power. That's a big one. There's so much abuse of power that goes on in government, politically, in so many organizations. Very few people I've ever met really know how to use power properly. And I see a lot of women struggling for power, wanting empowerment, wanting power, and sometimes abusing power very badly because they think they have a right to it. I think power is something you grow into. I think it's something, it's like a skin that you put on that gives you a way to negotiate with the world. It has something to do with the ego. Believing you are worthy of what you say you want is the spiritual affinity. The miasm, oddly enough, is the syphilitic miasm. And that's where the bones come in. That syphilitic bone pain that you see in cancer. And you'll see if people don't have a sense of their worth, they become slaves to those who just take the fire element and run with it. When I was taught the syphilitic miasm, they used Lenin as an example, that he was fire. He was the fire, and the serfs were just fodder for those political beliefs. It's like taming the fire. You have to know what you can manage, what's right, what's appropriate, what fits your community, and what you're willing to do to hold and maintain power. That's a whole nother story in itself. And if you look at the periodic table of elements and Jan Schulten's wonderful, brilliant work on the periodic table of elements, it's a stunning revelation to discover that 20 some odd years ago. I was invited to do homeopathy for Visa, the credit card people. And I had treated somebody and they got well, and they brought me in to treat their communications team.